This conference will now be recorded.
Hello and welcome everyone to today's Cataloging Interest Group meeting. This is our April meeting and I am Jennifer Weston. I am the facilitator of this group, and on behalf of the organizing committee, whose names you see listed at the top of the agenda every month, we welcome you to our conversations, and we hope that this is just continuing conversations that we've picked up earlier in the year, and we are pleased to welcome Bill Erickson as our special guest. We'll do a formal welcome here in a moment with Bill. As you can see, our brief agenda is listed here at the top. We'll just do welcome and general updates. So for anyone that is new to this group today or is joining us for the first time in a while, as a reminder, the notes will be updated, the agenda will be updated with notes as we go along and will be posted on the wiki. In fact, the link to the notes is already on the wiki so that you can reach that. The link to the wiki is here at the top of the agenda if you do not have that already. So the notes will be made available immediately afterwards. The recording of this session will be made available within 24 to 48 hours. I'll update the wiki so that the recording will be there, and then any links to any of the notes that we have. I have several additional links out to other documents. They will just live here in this primary document. So today we're going to take a quick look at the cataloger survey results and say thank you again to everyone who participated in the cataloger survey. And then we're going to talk a bit about the Angular staff catalog, because we haven't done that in going on a year, I guess, now. So we just wanted to bring that back to this group and celebrate some of the successes with the Angular staff catalog, and then talk a little as a group about some of the discussions that are happening in Launchpad about some of the functionality that we're reviewing. And anyway, just to bring all that back into one place. So again, for those of you that are just joining us, we're just getting started, and welcome to you. As always, we've got just a few general announcements as we recognize our own community and then celebrate the activities of the other interest groups in the Evergreen community. So first, welcome again. I want to remind everyone the Evergreen Conference, of course, is going to happen in June. The early bird registration for the conference ends April 18th. Doesn't mean you can't register after that. It just means you will no longer have the early bird registration price for the conference. Also, call for proposals is open until the end of this week. That's Friday the 15th. If you have ideas for proposals that are related to cataloging or not, and you want to run them by somebody else, and you think maybe I'd really like to see this kind of presentation be made available at the conference, whether you want to present or not, feel free to send that to the listserv, to the cataloging listserv, to generate ideas there, to say, hey, has anyone thought about doing this? And if it's something you think you might want to present on, but you don't want to do it by yourself, I'm always a fan of presenting with someone else to bring in 2 points of views when you're doing presentations, especially for the Evergreen community. If you're looking for someone to present with you, please feel free to send those kinds of notes to the Evergreen listserv as well. Or you can always just email the organizing committee. If you go to the wiki, all of our emails are on there, if you'd rather just contact one of us directly. Next month, we will talk about the programs for the conference so that we can look forward to the presentations that are being proposed. And then we will also next month talk about how we want to get together as a group at the conference, which will happen, of course, in June. As usual, we'll have our Evergreen Interest Group meeting during the conference, but we'll talk a little bit more next month about what we want to do during our time together at the conference. And here at the top, as always, we have a link to the most recently released notes and the tabular release notes. If you're not familiar with that, it's exactly what it says it is. There's a tab for each version of Evergreen dating back, I think, to 3.3 or 3.4. So every time there's a new release, that gets updated, including the point releases. And I keep a note on the wiki about what the latest release is. If you just need a simple place to go and think, what is the most recent one that's available? There's a place on the Evergreen website, but there's also a place on our wiki to see the most recent. So you can see that the most recent versions are 3.8.0, or if you're on 3.7 or 3.6 or 3.5, you can see what the most recent versions of those are as well. There's a link to the official Evergreen documentation and a link out to the community demo servers, which I want to point that to because I'm going to, here in a moment, do a very quick demo of 3.8, the holdings maintenance screen. And if you want to follow along with that, the community demo server does have a version of 3.8 available. So if you wanted to hop over there and use that login and follow along. I would highly recommend that, especially if you are one of the very many libraries that has not yet migrated to 3.8, because it is the newest version. The community demo server is the place to go. And my general updates there. I'm moving right along because I want to make sure we have plenty of time for our conversations with Bill. A couple of quick celebrations, though, before I do that. Evergreen 3.9, we talked about last month. The release work is underway. Since then, there's been a feature week. There's also been a bug squashing week. Bug squashing week just ended, and Taryn sent out notes on Monday. If you missed her notes about bug squashing week, and there's a link to the final numbers and notes, it'll take you to their wiki page about bug squashing. Not only does it give you notes, it'll give you the link to the big spreadsheet that kind of shows you the different bugs they were working on. A lot of really good stuff in there. We'll spend more time on that after the release about what's included. But if you're curious for now, it's a good way to keep up. And so thanks to everybody that participated in that. And to Taryn, as always, even though she's not with us, I always like to say thank you, Taryn, at every meeting, because inevitably she's been a part of bringing us together to be able to review the work that's going into the newest releases. As of now, I believe the tentative release date is still April 27th, but I use the word tentative I emphasize the word tentatively very strongly. So we'll watch the developer notes that come out to the listservs too, for any updates for that. But that was the original date given to us, looking at April 27th. So by the end of the month. I'll also make sure I forward anything to the cataloging listserv, that anything that comes out to the general public, I'll make sure it gets pushed here. And of course, our group is responsible for maintaining that tabular release notes. So as that's made available, I will also make sure you all are aware of that. And another celebration, Katie is not with us today. Normally I would invite the person that is the community spotlight person that's being recognized for the quarter. This is an honor that is designated by the outreach committee for the Evergreen outreach group. And for the first quarter of 2022 is Katie Greenleaf Martin. Many of you know her or have worked with her. She was appointed the executive director of Pennsylvania Integrated Library System, or PELS, very recently. So if you want to read that full announcement, it'll tell you lots more about the fascinating work that she has done and continues to do. I will invite Katie to our meeting next month so that she can come and talk with us a little about her involvement in Evergreen. But I encourage you to take time to read more about her, and if you know her and feel comfortable, send her a note of congratulations and thank her for all the work she's doing. And as I am speeding through the agenda, please pause at any moment. If anybody has celebrations they would like to add, feel free to drop those in chat, or feel free to turn your microphone on. Just be considerate when you're not talking to turn your microphone off, but you should all have the ability to unmute your microphones. I should have said that in the beginning. Okay, Catalogers Connect is one of my favorite things to do. We look at all the different interest groups and the work that's going on there. There's just their regular meeting schedule, and as far as I know, when their next meetings are, occasionally these get off schedule, and I count on those of you that are here today or that participate in these other groups to update those. But just from following regular conversations on the various listservs, I note that the acquisitions interest group will be meeting tomorrow. And Victoria Ryan Price, who I believe is with us today, will be doing a presentation on using the ACT purchase request. And there's a link to the agenda. Victoria, I don't want to put you on the spot, but there's anything else you want to say about your meeting that's planned for tomorrow?
Nope, nothing to add. I'll try my best.
I'm sure lots of people are looking forward to it, so you'll be great, no doubt. And
thank you.
Yes, and thank you in advance for answering the questions that I'm sure people will have about that. So that's tomorrow at 3. And the agenda will have the information on how you can join that call. And moving along, documentation interest group, their audit project is continuing. Of course, we knew that would be a year-long project or more. So we've talked about that several times in our meetings. If you've missed any of that, there's a link to the document. And then also, if you have questions about that, the documentation, the link up above here to the documentation interest group, there's more information on their wiki page as well. But this document takes you right to that full audit plan, if you're curious. And reports interest group is now meeting monthly. We celebrated that last month, that they're meeting monthly. I will point out that their wiki now has links to the agenda and the notes from their meetings and links to any presentations that happen during those meetings. And Andrea, I believe you are speaking at this month's meeting at April 27th. Is that correct? Are you talking about Simple Reporter?
That is correct. I will be talking about Simple Reporter and giving a quick demo, and hopefully Jason Boyer, who did the development work for that, will be on hand to answer any technical questions. So I'll be doing a quick little demo of that, and that is forthcoming in 3.9. So pretty cool.
Fantastic. I don't know that we've talked about that yet in this group. I get my meetings mixed up sometimes, but do you want to talk a little about what Simple Reporter is, just as a preview, in case people can't make that meeting?
Yeah, sure. So, and forgive my rough voice, it's allergy season here.
Mm-hmm.
So Simple, the idea behind Simple Reports was to provide a second interface to run a certain simpler reports. Sorry, I feel like I'm Captain Obvious over here. But where many of us who work with the full Evergreen reports interface know that it's incredibly powerful and can report on a lot of data, but it's also very complex and a little bit intimidating to new users, to say the least. So with Simple Reports, which is, again, not intended to at all replace the main reports interface, the idea is to give staff who are not reports experts a little bit more of a friendly access point to run certain kinds of reports. So I think the original 5 report types that are built into Simple Reports are like weeding reports, circulation reports, collection reports, patron information reports, and billing and payment reports. So when you pick one of those 5 types, you're sort of walked through the process of building your report and picking your filters, picking your search order or your sort orders and things like that. We made an effort to put friendlier labels on stuff, so you don't need to, say, know your org unit database ID number to do certain filters. Now you can just pick it from a list of known short names. Yes, and then you can do some simple like do some recurrence like you can in the regular reporter. You can set it to email to people. The outputs are familiar, Excel, CSV, HTML, things like that. And it's just a little bit, it sets aside that kind of that template report output model of the main reporter, and it just sort of coalesces it all into one thing. And I think, anyway, it makes it much easier to just run those real simple reports. And obviously, you sacrifice some complexity. You can't do the kinds of things you can do in the main Evergreen reporter or in SQL reports. It's just not at that scale. But for like your basic, weeding reports or giving my new patrons last month or kind of like end of year stats, that's the idea, is just to make this easier for frontline staff to go in there and grab those real quick reports without having to, reduce themselves to tears in the main reporter, which I am so sympathetic about. Like, I have worked with the Evergreen reporter for literally 12 years, and I'm still, it still trips me up sometimes. So the idea was to give a new access point for people that was a little bit more user friendly. So.
Thank you, and I'm sure that this demo is going to be fabulous. So anybody that's available on the 27th and wants to join that, I would highly recommend it, because I can't wait for this to come out. It's just going to be a life changer for a lot of people in the report world.
It was pretty exciting, and it was also one of Jason Boyer's first major development projects with Equinox, as well as the first time we partnered with Missouri Evergreen for funding for that, and which was great. And CW Mars was our other funding partner for Simple Reports. So it was a whole community effort, which was great to see.
Absolutely. A lot to celebrate there. We should put that in the celebration notes. Okay. Fantastic. Thank you, Andrea.
Welcome.
So before I move on, anything from any of the other groups anybody wants to highlight or announce? It covers a lot of activity already. Okay. Well, yeah, and we much thanks to the other interest groups that are actively working to make Evergreen better and to share information. Okay, that said, I'm going to skip over Launchpad bugs, because part of our program today is to talk specifically about Launchpad bugs. But just as a reminder, or if you're new to our monthly calls here, I've just got a list of the comprehensive list of tags, and our wiki also gives you a link to some of the ones that are familiar to catalogers. If you just want to search Launchpad bugs by particular things, these are just filtering them for you. So if you want to see new bugs or all cataloging bugs or all open staff catalog bugs, this is an easy way to do that. I am at all not insulted if you choose to spend the next 30 minutes or so looking at these bugs. It's a nice time to set aside. So just click on the link there and check out new bugs or cataloging bugs. And if you see anything in there that you want to bring up during our open forum here towards the end of our call, feel free. Okay. I wanted to spend just a little bit of time on the cataloger survey results because the survey closed last month. Well, closed between our last meeting and this one. I don't have a written summary for you yet, but I do have some graphical representations of the responses that we got. Anybody that volunteered through the survey itself, I will contact you by the end of this week to say thank you, and then to start talking about how we can start getting you plugged in between now and the time of the conference. I'm looking at about a 6-week period to start talking about volunteers and get some stuff scheduled for the rest of the year, but we'll do that over the next few weeks. So let's look at the response summary. And again, thank you to everybody that responded. This will help us, and us being the organizing committee and the cataloging community in general, which you are all a part of or adjacent to, help us look at planning. So what we want to do for the rest of this year and going into next year. There are 2 tabs on this spreadsheet here. The first one is the interest summary. The second is ranking. Difference being the question on the first one was, do you have any interest at all in any of these topics being included in cataloging interest group activities? And I can see from the top 3 listed here, reports for catalogers. And I am working to see if we can't get a presentation in place for the conference on reports for catalogers. Also, authority records and using Mark Batch Edit is up here. And then we have several others, just kind of looking at some of the other top result getters here. Changes in recent or upcoming releases, which is something we do pretty routinely. But then I'm just curious to see some of these others. There's Mark templates and RDA and Mark records. I don't want to discount the serials being 15 out of 50 because those of you that do use serials, we're very well aware that this is a conversation that people are very anxious to have about serials. And again, those of you that are using it are good advocates for documenting the kinds of change and for sharing the kinds of change you'd like to see in serials. So even though that's a small number, I think that that's a pretty significant one that we would want to take a look at. So thanks again for your results here, for sharing your interest here. And then looking at the ranking summary as well. So if we're seeing this, I've kind of done this the best way I knew how to show what ranks is, first, second, third, and fourth. So that if I look at what is the ranked number 1 most frequently, again, reports for catalogers, changes in upcoming releases, and authority records. And those are the top 3 vote getters of all. Again, I don't want to discount the small number of serials because I know that those of you that use serials, we really have not been, we haven't looked at that in the last couple of years, and now is probably as good a time as any to start putting that on our agenda for the sometime in 2022. So thank you again for this. I did want to share the results right away instead of just tucking them away in a shared Google folder somewhere. And we will be again following up, making plans for providing presentations, providing discussions and dialogue in the community on these various things, starting with those that are of the most interest to you. As I close this out, this means, of course, that I will, in the organizing committee, would like to put out a call for volunteers to help lead some of these discussions and look at putting together presentations for the group, specifically on authorities and serials. Because while from a how they should work point of view, we've got a lot of we could do, but we'd very much like to work with libraries that are working with authorities very routinely and working with serials very routinely. So we can make this more of a very much from the point of view of the people that are using it all the time. So if your library is working with authorities and serials and you would be interested in even just having a panel discussion about such a thing, please let me know. Any questions or anything else anybody might want to add about the survey from this point before we jump into the Angular staff catalog? Okay. Well, you've got access to that document there. If you feel like that there are topics that should have had a bigger priority, feel free to send those to the listserv too and say, it might have gotten just a small number of votes, but I'd really like to see, a particular kind of conversation happen within the cataloging interest group. We're always open to those ideas. Okay, that was fast talking 20 minutes to get us here. So here we are. Welcome to Bill Erickson, whom we have not had visit us since I think it's February of last year. So it's been well over a year. So thank you, Bill. And Bill is famous, world renowned. I do want to, yes, I didn't say infamous, I did say famous. And we all know Bill. Bill doesn't just do work. I should say, Bill doesn't just do work on the Angular staff catalog. He does lots of things all the time. As one of the originators of Evergreen, of course, he has history like very few others, and continues to develop all the time. Every release that comes out, you can see his name is all over it, as well as some other people that are well known. Bill, thank you for being with us today. If it's okay with you, I'm going to do a short demo, and then we just have some questions for you. And then for the rest of the group, I'd like for you to go ahead and introduce this document here, this Angular Staff Catalog discussion notes. While I'm doing the demo, if anybody wants to start looking at those and see if you have questions about any of those particular bugs, or if you want to talk about any of them, the point of today is to kind of give us a review of where we are and celebrate kind of how we've moved into the Angular world, even though it feels like that's been a couple of years we've been talking about it. There have been great strides in what that looks like now. But we also want to have a discussion about how you're using it, if you are using 3.8 yet, or some of the things that you are very cautious about as you hear us talk about what 3.8 might be, if you're really just want to talk about the things that would matter the most to you to be addressed in the holdings view. So with that said, I want to, one more thing. If we're using words like the Angular Staff Catalog, and you're curious about kind of the timeline of development of Angular Staff Catalog, today's not the day for us to revisit that presentation, but Bill did participate in a presentation we did back, it's been a year and a half ago now, October 2020. So there is a link to that presentation for anybody that is curious about the whole concept of Angular and how we got there. And really, it's a timeline up through version 3.6. As I say that, I'm thinking we should probably update that through 3.8. So I'm going to hop over and do just a quick demo of the holdings and item attributes editor as it exists in 3.8. I just have a sandbox, so it's not real data. I put a link to the release, to the Launchpad bug that represents that work that Bill did on just porting this over into Angular, the holdings editor. If you have time to just sometime scroll through that bug, there is a lot of dialogue, a lot of discussion that went into it. And if I were ever to celebrate community coming together to work, this is probably the Launchpad bug I would choose, because there was so much back and forth about, well, how does this get used? And have you tested this? And I think I would like to see it do something different. And Bill had the patience of Job as he was developing that for catalogers. So that said, there's that bug if you want to see. Then I'm going to come back after the demo, and we're going to work with this discussion notes here. And I will also, while we're here, I want us to revisit, while Bill is with us, our conversation about the holdings template wish list, specifically looking at this standalone holdings template editor. So it's a lot we want to get through. My demo will be very short. So again, this is just a sandbox of 3.8. It's no specific library. And as I am searching this, I do always like to take time, because I say quickly, and I'm reminding myself quickly, because I will get lost in the weeds showing you all the great stuff. But as of 3.4, when you're searching the staff catalog, you have the option to keep your recent searches. Very nice, right? This happened with Angular. You have the option to save search templates. For example, I've got a title and author saved. Saves the structure of your search, so that if I very routinely search by title and author, I can just save that. Keeps me from having to set this up every time. And I have this search preferences. If you're in a version between 3.4 and 3.8, this will be called catalog preferences, but it's the same thing. It got renamed in version 3.8. But this is the nice thing, to where just locally you can save your search library, your preferred library, that sort of thing. So your search templates are stored locally, your search preferences are stored locally. And Bill, I'm very guilty of saying things like stored locally. Do you have a more specific definition you can give other than just stored locally?
Yes, I can give the more specific one. They are stored and they're linked to the workstation. So and essentially it's the workstation name. So if the top right corner of your screen there, the BR1-J Weston, they're linked to that. So anytime you log in with that workstation, the settings will be the same. And even if you were to open up another browser or Firefox or something else and create a workstation with the same name, they would be available there as well. So they just follow the workstation name.
Okay, fantastic. So if I clear my cache, it's still there, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right. And if I go to another computer, but I still use my same workstation, is it still there?
Still there.
Still there. Okay. Different browser, Firefox, Chrome. I think
Mm-hmm.
that answers. I was looking back through my list of frequently asked questions when it comes to where things are saved, and I think that answers that.
Well, it was a little confusing early on because we were figuring out where everything should go, but now practically everything that is a new setting is going to be done on the workstation.
Fantastic. Okay. Mary, I see your microphone come on. Do you want to?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out and say, yay. If you scroll down a little bit more, there's that return button.
Yes, 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 yes. I love that return button. And that was in 3.82 because yes, I agree. Before you were just here and you had to search to leave the screen, but that return button is fabulous. It
Yeah,
looks
so thank you. Kudos.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mary. I'd forgotten that, but I do love that return button. Okay, so here we are celebrating more things about Angular. Also, the exclude electronic resources is now actually sticky in the way that we like to define sticky, so that if you turn on the little box here in your preferences, it stays up there. And then so that you can continue to use it or not use it, and not just for when you go away from the screen and come back, it still stays there. So that was another nice quality of life thing for us. So if we just want, I'm going to just reset this. So now when I search, I'm really trying to get us over to the holdings maintenance screen at this point. So I log here. One of the things we're going to talk about, and I'm just going to raise it here so that we can have the visual to go along with it, is this patron view. And then also looking at, because right now, if you look on patron view, it opens a new tab and it essentially provides you with exactly what it advertises, the patron view. We've talked about the need for a staff summary view as well. And thank you to CW Mars, who has just agreed to fund that particular development. So I will talk a little bit about that, and I have it linked on the document I've pointed you all to. But so that's really the difference between this patron view is really the OPAC view, and it opens in a new tab so that you can't really browse between them, because one of the nice things about having a summary view here for staff is that while you have the Mark Edit that you can go to here, not all frontline staff are going to want to use the Mark Edit view of things, or some catalogers don't want to use the Mark Edit view if you're just looking for things like, what's the right pagination? Do I have the right narrator? Well, I'm on this one, and I can't look at any of that information without going to Mark Edit or popping out to patron view at this point. And if I were looking at all of my results, if I wanted to go to my next result, then I've lost the ability to see the patron view. I would have to open new windows each time. So the development CW Mars has just agreed to fund will give us a new tab for the staff summary view, which is fantastic. So yes, thank you to CW Mars for that. So if I go back, try not to digress too much further.
And if I could just add 2 cents.
Please.
Mary. Also, by having in among the tabs, you could set it as your default view. So every time you come into the record, that's what you'll see first, instead of having to go pick it every time.
Oh, very good point. It would save you lots of clicks. So all you'd have to do is click on the Set Default View button here. When you have a tab. You just choose that one and then set your default view, which would be saved at your workstation. Very, very good point. Okay, so now let's get into our, I'm just going to edit an item as it is. So our holdings editor. So now in 3.8, this does, I'm going to read Andrew's note, confirm that the new staff view tab will honor things. Oh, I lost my chat box. Here we are. The staff view tab will honor the set default view setting. Oh, thank you. So confirming what Mary said, it will work that way. Janet says if you check the exclude electronic resources and preferences, it still excludes them even if the box does not show as checked on the search screen. Janet, as long as you've checked that, I guess I want to go back and pull up that screen so I can show you what I'm talking about. And I'm moving my chat box out of the way. What I'm saying about sticky is here, this little box here checked doesn't mean to exclude it. It means to show you the box. So once I've checked this, if I return to my screen, this isn't going to be checked until I choose to check it. So at that point, it will remain sticky so that I don't have to continually come down here into my references and say, yes, I want to show that box. It will continue to show it for me by default once I make that a preference. And then I can choose whether or not I really want to exclude electronic resources. It's a matter of whether or not this box will display. Okay, great. Thanks, Janet. Good question. Okay, so here we are back in our holdings editor. We now have a preferences tab. This is the one that was renamed. Oh, no, that was on the other side. Anyway, we now have a nice preferences tab that lets us do all kinds of great things. Again, these are saved at the workstation so that if I want to control what I'm seeing here, if I don't want my holdings and my item attributes on different tabs, if I want to see them together, all I have to do is under preferences is just show the unified holdings and item attributes display. So now I have them on both. So I have my holdings information, my call number, and then my item attributes below. And I can do that myself. Before, there was a library setting that had to be set before you could see that. So that now you can do this yourself. It's controlled by your workstation. And as are all of these preferences now. And you can kind of take a look, especially if you don't have 3.8, I would encourage you to use the community demo server to look at these, because it really lets you tailor this to how you want this to display for you specifically. And also if you want to set some defaults over here, if you always want Dewey to be your default classification, for example, you can do that. You can hide item parts if your library doesn't use them. We're starting to have some functionality built into, which is fabulous, to where you can change the circ library when the owning library changes. You do that by default. You can set a default StatCat library filter if you want. And then also, you can hide attributes so they'll be hidden from your item attributes form. So if I do not need to see, for example, I don't want to see cost and price, I can take away one of those if I want. I've got this kind of set up the way I want it now, but let's see if I wanted to take away, let's just take away creator for now, just to show you how that works. You can do that. So then if we go back to the holdings, you can kind of see that this is a limited. So you can have limited number of boxes on here depending on how you want to use this screen. And then it's really a matter if you want to make changes, you just click in the box and apply a shelving location. Clearly this isn't a biography, but we're going to go with that for right now. And I'm seeing your notes in chat and I will follow up on those in just a moment. So really to make any changes, you just click in the box and make those as you want to there. And more links are being put in there to different Launchpad bugs as we go. Okay, so I just do all of that and I can apply down here at the bottom. I now have two boxes that say apply all and save, or apply all, save and exit. That just means I'm going to leave the bib record. If I apply all and save, I stay in it. You'll notice that what's missing are those two tabs that used to be your working items or pending items, or I don't remember the definition anymore, but now you don't have to deal with the two different tabs that way. You can either just apply all and save, or you can come back, or you can save all of it, but you can just stay in the one place, which is nice. So that's the differences in those two. And you've got the option to print labels immediately from this screen, which is very nice. So let's just apply all and save to that. And then if I go back to finish up my quick demo, if I go back here and I want to go to my holdings view, I'm going to show you the enhanced functionality that we discussed in one of our calls here, was to talk about being able to edit two items that had different values for them. So let's take a look at that. So if we do edit call numbers and items. So at this point, I have a shelving location. One is biography, one in reserves. What if I only want to change one of those and not both? I can do that. So if I want to change my reserves, the one copy that says reserves, to be now on display, I can do that. I can just select one of those within the same session here. within the same screen. If I want to change the price on if I want to change the price for both of these to be $24.99, I can do that. So that I don't have to do these one by one by one, I can select both of them and come in here and make my changes independently within really kind of one transaction, which will save us a ton of time, especially for those of you that are cataloging for multiple libraries. So again, I just play all and save, and that would be true for anywhere you see. Here's my cert modifier, so if I just need to fix that one, I can do that as well. You get the idea. Some of the bugs that we want to talk about is using these item tags, item notes, and stat cats. So I just want to kind of point out where those are so that we can start the conversation about those. For now, I'm not going to try to save those. I'm going to stay in here because the last thing I wanted to demo is templates. Well, actually, I'm going to show you these batch actions. You can make that go away and you can open that or make it go away. Before, it was just always visible, so that you always just had to, when you were training, skip over to tell people, don't do that if you're only adding one item. Now you can collapse that and make that batch action go away. Okay. Lastly, then, for templates, they are now embedded and they live right in here. And that's part of our conversations we started last month about templates. So that if you're creating a new one, you could just make the changes you want to make here and save. And then this is also where you would apply them. Also where I can make changes and save to edit it. This is also where I can import, export. All of that is embedded right in the holdings editor now in the same screen with the item attributes. Or if I undo the unified holdings parts to show both, you can see that the templates still live here as well. Okay, so that's the demo. And I will leave it open in case we want to come back and look at anything there. And then I want to open this document here. Okay. And I am going to pull up the chat box and see what's going on here. I guess, Bill, I wanted to come back to you before I start on that long list and talk about this one Launchpad bug that's on the whole template wish list here about the standalone template editor, and see what kind of feedback you might need from this group about preferences for having a standalone holdings template editor versus, or maybe you could even talk about now how the two are they synced up or are they not in 3.8, and kind of a best practice for using it in 3.8, and where do we go from here?
Right. They're not 100% synced up on 3.8, so that's an outstanding issue. I was having trouble understanding the use case early on, and at some point I'd forgotten that the other one actually existed, which is part of why I didn't get updated along with it. One of the things I was thinking about is if there was maybe some way that we could, hold off on that. My mind's going in 100 different places right now.
Sure.
The best thing to do in 3.8 and beyond for the moment is just to get to the copy editor via any means possible and use that as the template editor.
Okay.
Now, I know that the concern there is that it can be a whole lot of clicks. And I wanted to point out that it is possible to set up a bookmark in your browser that would go directly there if that would interest people in the meantime until we have a separate standalone one. And that's the link I'm talking about.
Okay.
Right.
I'll put that in our notes.
And the only thing that's different is that number right at the end there is a copy or item identifier that may or may not exist in your system, so you might have to change that last number.
Okay.
That's the complicating factor there.
Got
But that will take you right to the item editor, and then you could essentially pretend like it's a standalone template editor at that point.
Okay.
But yes, that would be the better approach for now, since there are certain fields, I believe, that don't map properly from the current standalone to the Angular, the updated editor.
Mm-hmm. Are there any known, and I know I've got them listed out here somewhere, any known bugs then about doing it through the item editor? So if we're making changes, let me get to the right screen here. So if we're here and we're saving templates this way, is it still, I think there's one we have to log out and back in before we see them.
I don't remember that one specifically.
Okay.
I'm not aware of any bugs with creating the templates here. Doesn't mean they're not there.
Let's see if we have one, and anybody here that we talked about last month. Let's see if that's still on our list here. trying to move things around and my controls are in the way. I apologize. Let me get back here. Okay, there we are. Maybe not. Oh, here we are. New holdings templates don't automatically display in the holdings editor. I think this was the one. This is if we do it through the local admin holdings
Okay,
template editor.
this is essentially the bug we've been talking about.
Yeah. So that's when we
Okay.
talk about not being synced
So-
up. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, and I realize now my recollection of that may have been wrong. Is that really the main problem? It's just that they don't appear without logging out and back in, or are there situations where they don't actually get along together?
Well, I think there's that one.
Okay.
And then there is this one before that, there's a patch fix for that one, that we weren't retrieving them. And then we
Okay.
have some that, and I think that these others are just about holdings templates in general, how they fail. Holdings
Okay.
template creation. Let's see what this last one is. Holdings template fails trying to create a new holdings template editor.
Yeah, I have not seen this one.
Yeah, I think this is,
I'll have to review
and
this.
I'm trying to read Jennifer Pringle here with me too. Didn't display in the list initially. Yeah, I think again, we're having to log out and back in regardless of where we create them.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, but it also, and I think part of the not being synced up too is if we create them in the holdings template, in the holdings maintenance screen, we do have to log out and back in, but they're not going to appear in the standalone editor at all if you create them through the item editor.
Okay.
So that's part of the not being synced up then.
Right. Yes,
Got
as
it.
far as the storage goes. But it
Those
seems
two
like
things.
the templates themselves, once they appear, regardless of which place you make them,
Mhm.
will work, is what
Yes.
I'm kind of taking away. Okay.
Mhm.
So it's mainly just, all right, that actually is probably something a little more straightforward to resolve then.
Right. So we've got those on this pad. So we've got all the holdings templates one stored here together, so you can kind of see where we are, and 2 of them have been fixed. And other than this, and then we kind of just had our use case about why we like the standalone holdings template editor there. It's in 2 places.
Right. And I understand, like I appreciate the value that it has, and I mean the one that's there is, I think, acts as a great template or a guide as far as what we need there.
Mhm.
And it'll just be kind of updated to look more like the updated holdings maintenance.
Oh, great. Wonderful. Okay. Lovely. Well, I did skip ahead to that, but I want to make sure we got to that. Okay. Now, some of these others, and I am reading through chat or trying to be here. So let's see if there's anything particular we wanted to point out. And Mary and Elizabeth, I know that you both spent a bit of time as we were putting together this list. So if there's anything in particular you would like to point out, or Jennifer, I see that you've got notes there too about Launchpad bugs. So I can just kind of quickly go through this list. I've already talked about this staff summary view and how that's going to make our lives even better than they already are, and reach the Launchpad bug there. I've got notes here about those that are already committed to 3.8.1, so we're celebrating those. Thanks to everybody who made that happen. I think where I would start, unless somebody wants to begin with any of these others here, is with this note about not being able to delete notes in the holdings editor and see if this is intended functionality, because we can do this through the action menu, but we can't do it through the holdings editor itself. And so I just want to open that up for conversation.
I'm double checking something. So just, I wanted to give a little bit of context about me over the past few months. We just at King County, 2 weeks ago, cut off the Zool client. Our COVID kind of like pushed everything off the map. So we're now finally on the browser client, and it has been a whirlwind of a few months.
No doubt.
So some of the stuff that are that I want to address, or things that I have partial fixes for, or stuff like that, in my various branches and things, but I just haven't had time to push them to Launchpad yet. And other ones are, stuff that I have just missed because I haven't really been paying close attention to the community in the past few months. Which I was actually really happy that you invited me to this, because now I get a chance to sync back up with everything that's going on. with regard to the notes, I think I added something on our end that's pending posting to Launchpad to address that, but I want to make sure I'm not making that up, so
Okay.
I'm pulling up the catalog on my own site over here.
Sure. And Mary, correct me if I'm wrong. I think what we've tested here is that, adding a note or an alert or a tag in the holdings editor, we can do that, but we have to apply all and save first. But then the ability to edit it or delete it is something we can no longer do in the editor. Am I stating that correctly, Mary?
Those are two separate issues.
Yes.
So I wanted to know, was it intended that we had to do apply all and save before starting to use the item notes and alerts? When I tried without doing the apply all and save first, the screen kind of twitches and then becomes inactive, and I can't do anything, and I have to close it and reopen in order to establish my item.
Is this when you
So-
add new items?
Yep,
I
adding a
guess.
new item. Yeah.
Okay. So that's that shouldn't be nested under cannot delete notes and holding editor. That's a different thing. Okay.
It doesn't sound like it was intended. It sounds like something that needs to be improved. And I was looking back over at some work I've done recently that's pending Launchpad, which improves the management of item notes in the item editor, specifically showing all the existing notes that are linked to it, and an option to remove notes from items. So that's one of the things I need to get posted out to the community.
And for now, the workaround, I believe, is just to use the action menu, right, from the holdings view so that we can get there. So if I wanted to, I can add notes all day long, but if I wanted to remove them or edit them, I have to go back out.
You can't edit the note. You've got to kill it and create a new one, which is what it used to be in Zool.
So even from
that back.
Yeah. So if I come to the action menu and I go to edit,
you have to go to add manage item notes.
Yeah. I was going to look at item alert.
No,
it's different. Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. So I have to go to add manage there.
Right. But that note that you've got, that existing note, you can't.
I can't edit it. So there's no workaround for editing.
No.
There's a workaround for removing. There's not a workaround for editing.
In the other version, I guess AngularJS version, you could edit existing tags, and I was really happy when we got that. So I'm sad now.
I understand. If you're like me, I need to edit because of my typos sometimes, especially as public notes. But the workaround for that now is remove it and add it back, and then just add the edited note at that point, right? If we're looking for workarounds for now.
Yeah, that's not really good.
No. Better than nothing, but no. Okay, so the only workarounds we have now here are remove and add features, functions, options, in action menu. See, typos. This is the reason I have to do this while people are watching. Okay, I do it when you're not watching either. It's just more anxious when I am. Okay, there we go. So we've got a workaround. And this, I think, is pretty well documented in this bug. So it sounds like, Bill, you've got something that will address this bug specifically already.
As far as deletion goes, yes. I didn't add editing support in the work I've done so far, but that's conceivable.
I'll say new. Cannot edit.
Yeah.
All right. Just keep my notes on there. And I think some of these others we've talked about previously. I'm just trying to use our time together to bring all of these together into one list about not honoring particular workstation settings, that kind of thing. The other big one I think we have here is that when we try to create a template with an item alert, it just breaks it. And I would assume that that would be creating a template through the holdings maintenance screen here. Let's see. So if we try to create I guess I need to do through the whole thing here. Here's my barcode.
If you're just creating a template, you don't actually have to have a barcode or anything.
It's just habit.
Oh, okay.
But that's also good to know.
Yeah, you can go straight here, and the only thing that matters is stuff that you change values for.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna leave that as I'm just gonna make this just a basic fiction. for now. But then an item alert, I can't even.
Okay, so there's a theme here where
Mhm.
these actions that open up screens to manage related information that's not directly on the copy have a
Yeah,
problem when you're not editing an actual existing copy, or at least, yeah. Okay,
that's what we're seeing.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that
that would
makes
stand
sense.
true for item tags, item notes. We can't put any of that in an item template.
I see.
Same reason, I would imagine, eh?
I would imagine.
Okay. So now that we've demoed that, Mary, I think do we have a bug for that, right? Yes. That was up here. And it probably covers that it's not just item alerts, that it's all three of those. But I'll make sure that we get that note added in there. Well, then adding item alerts and item attributes fails too. Yeah, same thing there. So they're two different. One's about adding the item alert at all when you're creating a new item, and the other's about creating a holdings template with those. But I imagine it's the same thing going on behind the scenes. Okay, looking at the time, let's look at the last note here from Jennifer Pringle. I'd love to see this bug added to the list. The fact that both Angular and JS holdings editors are available in 3.8. So let's see what this bug is that we're adding to the list, which I'm always happy to do. And I should say that you all have access to this document, everybody who has a link to it, to add to the bottom if you'd like. Well, I'm happy to do that. Feel free, and then I'm going to add in both of these and we'll look at them real quick, Jennifer. This one is, ta-da, holdings editor differs depending on access method. There you go. And Elaine's not with us, but this is one she reported earlier in the year. And there's screenshots there, depending on how you get to there. Let's see. Like work has been done. Where are we? It's just been confirmed already. So I'll add that. Well, anything else anybody wants to add to our list? I will put this list on the wiki so we can kind of track and then ask people to add notes. I'm trying to type and talk at the same time. It's tough. Okay, what is this one we just did? Ends in 619. That was that one. And then this one. Item alert uses old interface and item status. Really? That's new to me. I'd missed that one entirely. When you click on managing the alerts column and item statuses, the pop-up from the old holdings editor is used. That's very interesting. Huh, all right. We'll add that to the list as well. Thanks, because I think that there are quite a few of these out there that's just a matter of drawing attention to, because you guys work with it much more often than I do. I'm just trying to, there we go. What else do we have? Nope. Jennifer says, Jeff tried to fix, but resulted in us not being able to use the holdings editor at all. Well, I would say let's not put that one into place. We like the holdings editor. We don't want to kill it. There we go. Anything else we want to add to this list together? Elizabeth, I just added your note here about relevance ranking and all of your notes there. So I don't, we haven't found a Launchpad bug about that one. It sounds like perhaps we should.
I'm working on one in another tab, so yes.
Okay, great. And so look for that one. So Elizabeth, when you do get that one added, if you'll send it to listserv so we can all review it and add notes and add heat.
Oh, I love adding heat.
I know. We got the great group here to do that. Looking at any other of these that we want to look at under demo while we're all together and while we have Bill's time to give us some insight. I know that there were too many for us to go through them one by one. I just wanted to make sure we had them gathered in one place, but anything we want to highlight? Some are pretty straightforward about the option to display the full name. Some of this is just, giving functionality.
I'm not seeing it here, but I think I have a ticket about stat cats that we had marked as being required. That wasn't being honored anymore. It's letting us create the item without the stat cat being filled in.
Okay, we'll go, being honored. We'll go look for it. And Have we found it already? Look at this group. There it is. Et voila. Thank you.
Don't have Launchpad open right now, but I swear there is a similar bug in the patron editor, or maybe my antihistamine brain is making that up, but that sounds so familiar, like that there's an equivalent required stat cats. Patron stat cats are also not saving. But
Okay, I'll just make it.
I know that's not specific to catalogers, but just in case, like it's just related.
Okay, find bug. We'll do that. And equivalent is that how you spell equivalent? Sure it is. Okay. And again, you all have access to this. So even after now, if you want to keep doing that, we'll link to this. I'll clean it up a little and put it on the wiki so that we can start gathering ideas. We started that a year or so ago, and I just wanted to refresh our list of things that we were finding and that just ideas we had about using it. At this point, there aren't real big roadblocks about using it, or none that I'm hearing from the group or seeing. I know that a couple of these are marked critical.
Well, we're still just in the testing mode, but at this point, I would not encourage my site to move to 3.8 until all these item situations have been resolved.
By item, you mean the ones in
The notes, the alerts, the tags.
Got it.
The whole thing. It's there's a lot of red ink on my testing spreadsheet, and we need to get that cleaned up before we would move ahead.
So it's these three really here that I've highlighted there that are the most urgent.
They amount to a lot.
Sure. Well, and if you're a library that's using templates that have those already, I also wonder then about how they would migrate.
Right, but I don't think any of our libraries are using templates for those fields. I encourage them just to use the shelving location, CircMod, and the StatCat, and not do templates for the others. It's just a plain fact that you can't. They're not usable in the state they're in, and they're a stumbling block.
So the problem here isn't with the template. The problem is with not being able to add the item, alerts, attributes, and notes when you're creating a new item. Okay.
Correct.
So let me make sure I gather that. Cannot add alerts, notes.
And tags.
And tags. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Yep. Got it. Like I said, I'll clean this note out. Thank you for that. Okay. Jennifer Pringle, also not excited to have 2 sets of documentation for the holdings editor if both versions continue to be accessible. Yes. And Bill, can you, I guess I haven't looked at accessing 2 different holdings editors. I haven't spent time on that. About
those are just lingering spots that need to be fixed. There's no reason they can't be all pointing to the new one.
Got it. The old one is just lingering. Okay.
There's a surprising number of entry points that just get forgotten about.
I'm just going to say it needs to be cleaned up for
now. The time goes so fast. We have a dev meeting that's about to start, so I may pop off here in a second.
Well, we thank you so very, very much, Bill. We really do.
I feel like I didn't do anything. I'll invite me back anytime. I'm happy to join, and maybe next time I'll have a little more to say.
But more than importantly, you listen to us, and we love that. So,
great. Yeah, no, this is very helpful. It's good to hear what all the real pain points are.
Thanks for all you're doing too, genuinely. So,
of course.
Good luck. Thank you, and we'll tag you later. Bye. Okay, and it is time for us to wrap up too, looking at the top of the hour. I usually stop recording at the top of the hour and then I can hang around for a little bit after. I did want to, before I do that though, I did not want to lose, there are a couple other notes at the bottom of our agenda. If anybody out there is using a graphic novel icon already and would like to share how you're doing that, I know we've talked about icons quite a lot in this group, but if you specifically have added one that's a custom graphic novel, we've got a request on the listserv to see how that's being done. Similarly, if anybody has worked with alternative subject headings since we did our presentation last September, we'd be curious to see how that's going. So if that's something that you would feel comfortable sharing on the listserv with how that's working in your libraries, or perhaps would even be comfortable talking about it next month's meeting. I think we will bump both of these to make sure that they get some attention in May if we don't have a lot of discussion on the listserv between now and then. Anything anybody else would like to add as we're wrapping up? I'm going to go ahead and stop recording. Thank you all. Like I said, I'll hang around for a little bit after. Our next meeting is May 10th, same time, same location. So we will see you in May. Thanks for all the work you're doing. And thanks for continuing to stay in conversation with all of us. See you next time.